All right, it's Eddie B here with my best bud, Brian Ashton. How's it going today, Brian?
Going pretty good. Trying to stay warm here in Indiana. It's
Yeah,
freezing.
yeah, for sure, for sure. A crispy 62 here, my friend, in Colorado. Not to rub it in at all, but yeah. Hey, what we got going here is the Eeez N Beez Brunch. Me and my buddy here, we're going to go over the Monday Night Wars in 96 from both Raw and obviously Nitro. It's going to be a blast, dude. What we're going to do is just our way. We're going to talk about this thing from head to toe and make fun of it if we have to, compare, and obviously we're gonna give it a baking rating at the end of each episode. So I'm gonna get things started here with 96 Raw episode one. Obviously, it went down right around the same time as the Super Bowl. Do you remember that, Brian?
Uh,
It caught me off guard when they came out. The first match, obviously, they were wearing those silly ass jerseys. Did you notice that?
that was, I think, in reference to because you remember they used to do all the college football games on January 1st, and it's January 1st, 1996. So I think they were really trying to capitalize on the attention that all the bowl games were getting. Yeah, it was pretty hokey in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't remember it. Obviously, going back watching this over, some of the stuff I'm not going to remember at all. Some of it I had not even seen because this is the period of I think where I started blending in and out. Probably you as well. And then obviously as we got into high school, things changed for us. We didn't pay any attention because all we wanted to do was chase girls. But that's all right. I noticed this, Brian. The first match was a pretty I don't know, pretty good one in my opinion because it showcased a lot of talent. It was Smoking Guns, which was obviously Billy and Bart Gunn,
Yep.
and they went up against Yokozuna and or yeah, Yokozuna and Owen Hart, right? Also there was Razor and Vega, 1-2-3 Kid, and Sid Vicious, which I totally forgot about that being a combo back then. That's a good combo if you
And
think about it.
yeah,
I
they could.
mean, you got the big dude, the small dude that can do everything, the big dude that's the powerhouse. It's I don't know. I just totally forgot about it. But what I want to tell you, Brian, is what kind of like we talked about at the beginning here. They all had jerseys on,
Yeah.
and I was kind of paying attention to that as the match was going. And did you notice that Yokozuna's jersey was 641?
No, I did not. I did not. What's this? Is that his weight?
Dude, that's what I was gonna ask you. What do you think? You think he was weighing 641 at that time?
He was a big dude. Yeah, I thought the jerseys looked kind of funny, especially like over their wrestling singlet. And I also noticed that the mat was like a football field, is what they were doing.
Yeah, it was. It was a little cheesy. It was like they were trying a little bit too hard, in my opinion. I don't know. That's just kind
The
of the way I.
announcers were forcing the football references. If you listen to Lawler,
Yes, let's talk about that. That's Lawler and Vince. Yeah, they're not so much. I guess yeah, they are forcing it down on you, but like they're making sure about every two to three words that they're referencing some kind of or football reference or. Did you notice that like almost every I don't know comedy thing that came out of Lawler was football related, but he also was wearing a Cleveland Browns jersey. Did you catch that?
I did catch that. What's the significance there? Why
He's a
Cleveland?
Cleveland Browns fan, and if you haven't been paying attention here recently, obviously they went to the playoffs this year, but he was all over Twitter, every weekend with his Browns gear. He has like all this unlimited Browns. He's been a Browns nut, and it obviously has paid off finally for him, I guess, in a way.
I know he's like out of like Memphis, but is he from Cleveland or are you aware where he's from?
I'm not aware if that's why what that combination why he is a Browns fan. I'm not sure, but anyways, let's get back to this match. The way it ended, Brian, I wasn't a fan of. How about you?
Let's see. I got Razor comes back, shoves the kid on Sid, and then the smoking guns win. Yeah, that's what I have.
I mean, it's obviously leading into a storyline here, right? I mean, we know that.
They got a little beef going on, right?
Yeah, or a past storyline, yes. But My thing is just the way it was done by Razor coming back out. It was sloppy, and the way Razor got pinned in the match,
Yeah.
I don't know. It didn't settle right on me. I mean, like I said, this was an okay match. It was decent, had a lot of talent in it, but I just didn't like the way it ended, dude. It just really sucked, in my opinion.
I thought they had like way too much going on. The timeout thing. Do you remember that?
Yes, let's talk about that. I
That's how
mean,
Razor goes out is he calls the timeout, but the ref doesn't actually goes ahead and gives him what the Razor's edge anyways. So he's
yeah.
already. What was the point of the timeout? I don't understand. And then he gets distracted.
If you go back and check it out a little bit closer now, talking about this timeout, Brian, there's more than once where even Yokozuna does it at the end, where there's people calling timeout, and obviously the ref's not paying no attention. But it's like, all right, you're giving us this silly ass rule. Obviously, you've only worked it into the storyline once. It didn't really work out that good for you. And now, like, the crowd knows what's going on, and you could see it happening, and they just ignore it. Like, oh, we're not playing that rule no more. I didn't care for it. I thought it was kind of funny in a way how they brought in football, but it kind of did get old. and like I said, the match ended. I don't know if that was a botch ending. What do you think? You think that was how it was supposed to go?
I think it was supposed to go that way, but I don't think it was executed great. I didn't think they really could get in a flow because there were so many participants that the guy would be out there for a minute or two, tag someone else in. It just didn't really flow very well for me.
What about the band?
Yeah. Yeah. Really pushing the football theme on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, after that, Brian, they had a little promo with what they called the halftime report with Doc Hendricks, aka we all know him as Michael P.S. Hayes.
Yeah.
And then JR was acting as the sideline reporter. I thought that was kind of funny. Anytime I see P.S. Hayes, I pop anyways because he's just too much for me. He's hilarious. But what did you think about that little skit they put together?
Like I said, just pushing the football theme too much. Some other like things from the match, like I noticed you could tell Sid was definitely like calling his spots.
Yes.
Time I could
was not hiding it at all. I mean, if you pay, like you say, you pay any attention, you can see him talking the whole match every time he's in the ring.
I thought Yoko, for being as big as he was, moved really good.
Dude, he always did. Did you watch the Yoko documentary?
Mm-mm.
If you get a chance, go check it out. It's worth it. It's sad at points, obviously, but man, like it gives you more respect on how good that dude was. And like you and I watching him, we think of how fat he is and probably how bad that would hurt if you set on you or drop that. Dude, everybody talked about how good he was at doing those moves, and you would feel like a feather or a pillow sitting on top of you. So go back, check that out, dude. If you get a chance, it's worth a watch.
Yeah, I know they did too. A Brother Love cameo. I don't know much about Brother Love, but it's Bruce Pritchard, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
With a really red face. I don't know what he's doing. He was like giving a speech in a locker.
Well, he was supposed to be pepping up the players, and they had already left, and he had his eyes closed the whole time. They ran that like 3 times, right? Something like that. But yeah, he's back there getting getting all the guys supposed to be pumped up, and they're not even in there. All right, so now after this, Brian, after that little halftime report, things changed, and this is where I wanted to jump in with you, because before we jump into this next match, let's talk about that crowd that was at the event. It was a very good crowd, in my opinion. They were into it at the beginning. We'll talk about how they fade and come back, whatever. But here's what kind of shook me, and I totally forgot this is not live. But after that halftime report, we jumped to a taped match somewhere else.
Yes.
At an in your house show.
Yeah.
Which was an okay match, even though it was a gimmick match, a hog pin match between Henry Godwin and Triple H, or at that time I think it was Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Mm-hmm. But I want to ask you, do you remember that back in the day, them flip-flopping and it not being all together as one show? Or do you remember them? Yeah, they took tapings from house shows. I don't remember that.
it kind of becomes, I think, the biggest difference between the two shows. Honestly, that's kind of my main conclusion that I've drawn. I'll go ahead and I guess say it now is, obviously Raw was more geared towards younger kids, but I think the biggest advantage Nitro had was you actually got a live, real show. And I feel like the Raw episodes at that time really didn't give you much. What I remember as a kid, and I feel like it was like Saturday mornings. This was during an era I didn't watch, but as a kid, I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like it was this like jobber match. It'd be like,
On Saturday and Sunday mornings. That's all. Yeah.
jobber match, but then they would push through like taped stuff,
Yep.
the bigger matches leading up to the pay-per-view. So they didn't really give you on TV anything of substance. And I think that's, at least through these first two episodes, is kind of the running theme.
Exactly. And to add to that, like growing up, I watched a lot of obviously NWA, WCW, and it was the same. They would on the weekday show or whatever, it would be more of a jobber style match. They might have one good or one match that's a decent, I don't know, title match or something like that, but it wouldn't be a title change or nothing crazy. But then again, the bigger show for them would be on the weekend. That's when they would have the bigger stuff. Then it switched, and then they started going the opposite, and they would do like the Clash of Champions during the week and give it to you free. And we'll talk about that going here in a little bit later. But yeah, I just was curious if you remembered. It kind of caught me off guard, and it just maybe.
I feel like it's similar. I feel like it was presented a little different this time. But I felt like the feeling was the same. It was this kind of giving you some okay, mediocre to jobber matches. Whereas I thought WCW maybe to a fault kind of gave away. I mean, once we go through the Nitro match and you'll see the talent level versus what they put out there. Like, I mean,
that's what I was thinking.
Not to go too forward, but like they
yeah, we won't skip forward. But I know we're going to be on the same page. I know we are.
Kind of to go back during the halftime thing. I know they what was it? They teased like a Shawn Michaels press conference,
a retirement or whatever.
No, they said he had a concussion. I don't.
It was the concussion one. You're right. Yeah, and not going to be able to wrestle. Yeah, I see. I didn't touch much onto that because at that time, like, I just wasn't into. I don't know, maybe WWE or WWF, whatever it was at that time, as much. And to be honest, like we said, when we go forward, you'll see why the reason why I followed more WCW. That's my opinion, I should say. But in this match, as we're talking here, Brian, it's Triple H, like I said, Henry Godwin, and it was a gimmick match, a pig pin match. And Brian, I was shocked to see that they had live pigs. They built a real pig pen. You know what I mean? They've had everything you needed: mud, straw, the slop. Obviously, during this match, Hillbilly Jim was the guest referee. How fitting, right?
He looked like a beast too. Like he looked like huge. Like
he still does. And let me blow your mind. You know what he does nowadays?
He's a pig farm now.
I don't know. He's a manager of a strip club.
That does.
Or an owner manager or something like that of a really fancy. Yeah, right. Anyhow, this match had a little bit of everything. Obviously, it started in the ring. I was curious how they were going to make their way back to the pig pen, but obviously they did. The way it ended was kind of right in front of your face. You could see what was going to happen, obviously. But what I didn't expect, Brian, was them throwing Triple H in the mud afterwards. That was pretty cool to see him actually land the slop, get all that shit on him. Obviously, Triple H was the winner of this match. We won't go too in-depth into it, but I want to know what your thoughts were on it, Brian.
My thoughts were they cut to commercial a lot, so the match was really chopped up.
Yep.
What I saw of the match, I thought was pretty good, but they didn't give you enough. The ending, like you said, was kind of predictable. You kind of knew that the heel was going to kind of end up in the slop. I was trying to see what like the slop in the beginning. It looked like there was like a lettuce in
That's
it.
what I thought too. Like it was like corn, lettuce. It didn't look real. Like it was like, obviously not real slop, but they probably just took something from catering, I'm imagining, and just mixed it in the back.
Um, yeah, it was really hard to judge because it was so chopped up. I did make a comment that I was not a fan of the bow in Triple H's hair.
Yeah, yeah.
That was atrocious. And Jerry Lawler with his Jeff Foxworthy jokes. Uh, I'm really not a fan. Was not a fan of the WWF's announcing. Vince McMahon sounded like he was announcing for a monster truck rally,
Yep.
and Jerry Lawler is this
Just all the
over
time. He
the
cuts
top.
in. Ha!
Yeah. He's
Just
over the top,
noises.
too cartoonish for me.
Yeah, I will say I couldn't stand Jerry Lawler for some reason when I was younger, and now I love him, and I would choose him nowadays over almost all of the WWE commentary. But I will say this: if you was to put side by side the two commentating shows, I'm taking WCW all day, just because of how they describe the matches so much better. They have you more involved. That it's not so much
More
cartoon.
seriously, yeah.
It's not cartoonish or a comedy to them. They're taking this a little more
Well,
serious. I feel like anyway. But
comedy is so much better too. Like Bobby the Brain Heenan.
oh,
Me, maybe he's probably the best announcer ever.
and there's something I want to ask you about him on the second Nitro episode to see if you caught. But legendary.
He was literally. I mean, even if you don't like wrestling at all, I mean, he is a funny guy. Like he could be a comedian. I feel like he could have done mainstream stuff. He was that witty and smart.
Yeah, that's what they all say. They said the bad thing about him was his paranoia towards the end, but whatever. I mean, he was great in my eyes. One of the best managers and commentators, and he wrestled too. So, all right, Brian, let's keep things moving so we can get through all this. After the hog pin match or pig pin match, my fault. We had another promo, and I'll let you take it from here because I want to know what your thoughts are on these.
Who was the promo? I don't.
The Nacho Man.
Oh, wow! I didn't write that down. That's surprising.
It was a short one, but it was snap into the Slim Jim, and he, whatever.
Obviously, trying to take shots at WCW. I thought it was kind of hokey. I know I have comments on one. I think they do in the next episode. I thought there was some irony there about their age and things like that.
But, yes. Yep.
Obviously, they were getting under the WWF's skin a little bit there if they felt the need to. In both shows they have multiple segments of trying to insult their competition.
Yeah, it's definitely the dog and pony show between, I think, both companies. Mm-hmm. Definitely with this, though, WCW does it different. They just talk. These guys put together skits at the beginning, obviously, but
I think that's the right word. It was a skit more than a promo, and it didn't really have any effect on me. Let's
be honest. Let's say this is going down right now, 2021, and you're a newer wrestling fan or interested in wrestling or whatnot, and you're flipping through and you see that, you're not gonna stop.
No,
you're not. I'm sorry, and that's the problem with some of the stuff nowadays. Still, I report on all of it. I try to watch as much as I can, but there's some stuff I don't care who you are. You got to keep fast forwarding through that shit. But in this night, they did touch on a lot of the comedy. I feel like a little bit more than they should have. Obviously, starting off with the football, second with the Nacho Man, the Hawks, the Huckster, and they were really going after Mean Gene as well. Both episodes, but yeah, just retarded. After the Triple H Pigpen match, they had the skit, and then we had King Mabel going up against Diesel, Brian. And this, I know King Mabel wasn't.
This, I'll go ahead and say it. This match, if you want to call it a match, awful.
Wait,
Uh,
I'll tell you
Even
this.
on TV, it lasted 15 seconds, if that.
It took him longer to carry King Mabel to the ring than it did for this match. And then I was like, what I have written in my notes, Brian, I want to ask you, how do you think it feels to be one of them dudes that had to carry his ass to the ring every night when he was in that King Mabel mode?
I hope they were paid well.
Oh my gosh.
The king thing, I know that gimmick's been used a lot. I don't know how he obtained it.
He won the King of the Ring. So
Okay.
that's obviously that's how the King first kind of started, besides King Jerry Lawler. The King of the Ring started, with winning that tournament. He won the tournament prior. That's where he got that. So that's kind of where that came from.
That gimmick on him looks absolutely ridiculous to me. Like there's
It wasn't good. And let's be honest, there wasn't very many people, Brian, that could work with him. There just wasn't. Especially at this time.
Hurting people too.
He was just wasn't very safe, let's say. I don't know if that falls on the fact that he just wasn't a good wrestler, or if he just was, didn't know how to control his weight and stuff on other people, or whatnot in the matches.
Kind of the opposite of what we were saying about Yoko. Like,
boom, exactly. That's crazy, because you would think that people would be like, oh, well, I'm going to take, if this guy's 641 and Mabel's 545, I'm going to take Mabel, right? That's what people would think. But if you would ask anybody in the locker room, they'd take Yokozuna all day, every day over that dude.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
I know they were like really, even though their champions at the time weren't big, I know historically, like McMahon loved big.
That was the era, he goes through a phases.
Yeah, he probably was there just based strictly.
Like right now, he's body guy. You look at Bobby Lashley, Sheldon Benjamin, like Brock Lesnar. He's a body guy right now. He just goes through phases. Everything, probably as a wrestling owner running a huge organization like that, you probably would have to go through phases just to keep it fresh. Anyhow, Brian, that's going to wrap up the first Raw of the 96 year that we started right here on January 1st, as you said. I do want to say this. Diesel going to the commentators table and taking the queen from Jerry was priceless, because Jerry all night long, talking about how he's just in love with her, blah, blah, blah. You think he's thinking he's going to go home with her. And the big Kevin Nash just taking her right to the back with no questions asked. I'm going to give a baking rating on this show out of 5. I'm probably going to only be able to give it 2 pieces of bacon, Brian. How about you?
Ooh, way higher than me. I don't even think I could give it a full strip, maybe half.
You're going to give it a half. All right, let me write that down.
We also, this was at the very end too. There was a fight over the Lombardi trophy, which if it's college, I guess it really doesn't make sense. It was the Lombardi trophy, but the Brooklyn Brawler gave him this trophy with his face on it, if I remember right. And there's obvious Lipton tea product placement going on, and
there was a lot of
But to go back into the episode, I just thought it really had one match. I didn't think it was very, very great. One real live match. I mean, you had
right. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I mean, in reality, if you was look at this on paper, yes, the opening match should be great. You would think that maybe we will get a little bit more out of Henry Godwin and Triple H, which we didn't get much. We just, it was a gimmick match. What do you expect? But in the main event, you're thinking, okay, you're putting 2 big solid dudes out there. Hopefully they've worked something out to entertain the crowd. I'm going to be honest. I know that there was probably more for that crowd after this taping went off or whatnot. They've probably seen a lot more matches. But if I was to be at that show, I wouldn't be very happy paying for those tickets for what I seen.
I'm sure there was more.
There was
that we didn't see.
Yeah, it was more of a house show than a Raw taping. Let's be honest. Right at this time, Brian, Raw didn't know what they were really going up against with Nitro. Nitro had just started turning the volume up a little bit, and we'll get into that next. But honestly, I think we'll find out here a little bit later in the year as we go through this. It takes them a minute to catch on. Like, shoot, these guys are really putting it to us. and what we're doing is not working. And we'll talk about it. But
Yeah, I do have some notes too. Like there was I think a segment at the end where they did the huckster, the notch
yep.
stuff, and they showed like a segment of like, like Ted's like, can you do this? And they show like Razor Ramon doing the Razor's Edge, and they're like, he's like, no, I can't do that, and I can't remember what he says, but they allude to they can't do it, and then they show Kevin Nash with the power bomb. No, I can't do that. And I think the irony is, obviously, we know where those two guys went. So I
Right.
think it's
Yes.
funny
Yeah.
that they're making fun of how the wrestlers couldn't do that, and two of the guys featured literally, left the company.
And we don't know what they're thinking at that time, but honestly, Brian, I almost feel like they knew all along, but they were just playing along.
Probably.
I mean,
Yeah.
we'll talk about, like I said, we'll talk about later in the year, but their work rate goes down, in my opinion. I mean, it kind of started right there. Diesel, he didn't do much. It was a short match, obviously a bad opponent, but yeah, we'll talk more about that. And what we'll do, Brian, is we're not going to review all the pay-per-views, but we're going to bring them up when we start talking about the go home shows for these, and obviously the follow-up shows that are after the pay-per-views. That way we can discuss, maybe they had a better match here or there. So, all right, Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you, dude. It's Nitro 1996, episode 1. Take it over, bro.
So yeah, Nitro, January 1st, 1996, same date. It was in Atlanta, Georgia. It was live. I don't remember the WWF show saying where the arena was. I don't know if it was because it was taped or not. That's one.
Can't remember either. No, I don't have it in my notes. I want to say Philly, but I could be wrong. I could be way wrong.
Yeah. Let's see. Just some notes from the intro. I thought the set looked a lot better than the Raw set. It looked more intimate. I wanted to ask you this. You might know the answer. Maybe it's just how it was shot, but I feel like the WCW ring was smaller than the WWF ring, or is it the same size?
It's the same size. It's how it's shot, the angle they were shooting at, and they learned a lesson WWE did later on. But what I wanted to ask you in the same kind of realms is the commentator situation. Obviously, with WWF, they're at the ringside. Here, they're in the back at an angle kind of view, which is kind of common for most nowadays. Some still are at the ringside, but at this time, it was different. For you're used to seeing Shivani or whoever at ring and Mike Tenay and stuff at ringside. Now you got these guys in a little stand. What do you think? What do you think about that?
I didn't mind it. I liked it. I thought it looked. I don't know if professional is the right word, but I thought it looked nice with the set. I thought. I don't really, you watch I guess like NBA games, you have announcers, on the sideline, but a lot of sports, baseball,
Or away or in a box.
away, so like, and I'm sure if you're announcing, you're probably watching the monitor, so it's probably easier for them to concentrate on the monitor as opposed to,
You're right.
looking back and forth or whatever.
And what another thing also to add just real quick to that, they gave them another spot to go to for like promo spots or interviews, or obviously when NWO comes about and stuff like that. So, all right, man.
Yeah, so I go through the announcers. You got Mongo with his little dog.
Hilarious.
I thought it was hilarious too. He had outfits on him. Pepe was his name.
Yeah.
Bischoff, I actually thought was a really good announcer. I maybe later as time goes, I didn't like.
I didn't mind him, but I will say this: he's very repetitive, and if you notice right off the bat, man, he's making sure at home Hulk Hogan's there. I bet he said it 10 times. Hulk Hogan's here tonight. Hulk Hogan's here tonight. Like,
Bobby Heenan obviously is great, and I have that too. They already are hyping the main event, so they're
right out the door.
Yeah, and they're gonna have an actual world title match. So we go from a show that has a gimmick match, a 2-second match, and a tape match to probably the two biggest people in the promotion at the time having a heavyweight title match.
It's stacked. It's almost,
yeah.
if you go down the card, especially for some of these people that they had at this time were under talents, they end up, growing to be a great career in wrestling. This card here, right here, is a pay-per-view worthy almost. I mean, and I think the next week's just as good too. But before you start, I wanted to say or ask you, and I have it written on my side notes here. What's your thoughts? Do you think Bischoff was face at this time? I mean, he was. You got Bobby Heenan, who's obviously the heel commentator. You got Mongo, who's fresh. No, they don't know much about. Seemed like to me he was more of the face kind of guy. But I wrote down more than once on my notes, man, Bischoff is so face this episode on commentary. What do you think?
He's a face. I thought he tried to call it down the line, but he obviously would lean more face. Mongo too, but he wasn't as black and white, I think. Obviously,
Gotcha.
was the heel. And maybe I'm projecting things that like Mongo does later, but Eric definitely was the face, and he was, not to skip ahead or anything, but he was for a long time until,
Yeah. Well, last thing I'll say, and then I'll let you get started. Sorry. I wrote down two, and I wasn't sure at first because I forgot about this combo, these three guys being on commentary. But I wrote in my notes, man, Bobby and Mongo really had a good chemistry together. Really, and it was kind of odd because, they hadn't really worked together.
Yeah. I think Mongo gets a bad rap with a lot.
I'm with you.
He wasn't maybe the greatest wrestler ever, but they act like he was the worst. I never saw that. And I thought his announcing was good. He was funny.
Exactly. And I've heard a lot of people, put down his commentating. I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, when Mongo was doing it was awful." Well, dude, I kind of went into this thinking that maybe because the outside voices, but honestly, 2 weeks into this, dude, I'm loving him. I wish he was around now. All right, man, get going here. Let's see what happened on this episode.
So we go to match one already. I mean, Hall of Famers, Arn Anderson versus Macho Man. What do you say about that? I mean, that already pretty much trumps anything in the Raw episode.
Right off the bat.
A couple notes I made is the shots they panned of the audience. I felt like they definitely had an older audience. I didn't see a ton of little kids.
Yeah.
The WWF.
It was a full audience too. I had that noted in my notes here.
It was a more serious match. There were no gimmicks. It was kind of billed as a grudge match. Let's see. Now, obviously, these guys were both a little older, but they could still go at a high level. I didn't see anything as far as speed or anything like that showed their age.
Well, see, okay, and we know that's part of the reason why Macho was let go or left. He wanted him to be gone commentating, and he was slowing down. Dude, he did not slow down, in my opinion. I don't understand why they would do that, but yeah, that's their loss at this time, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's see. Also in the commentary, Eric gives away the Raw results.
Yep.
For doing. Refers to it as the toilet.
All right, let's talk about that real quick for 1 second. This goes down in history as one of the biggest things that starts the wars, honestly. And that's something that's never been done before, like not in the wrestling game anyways. And I honestly think once they started doing that, dude, and Eric wasn't, just like, hey, here's what's happening. He was, and Mongo, they were just promoting so much negativity towards that other brand that I honestly, you had no other way to go, Brian, besides there had to be a war. Think about it. That's, your only competition, and they're destroying you, and they're giving away all your secrets,
I think that trumps the Nacho Man skits.
Boom. Let's put them on a pedestal here. What would you rather have as an owner of an organization that's trying to win? I'm not going to take these silly skits that are only going to be funny once when we're here however many years later and we're still talking about this is what starts the war.
Yeah. I guess it was a smart business tactic. I'm sure it did force them to go live, which obviously,
Absolutely, they had to go live. I mean, otherwise they were going to have to figure out. They were going to figure the mole out. You have to figure the mole out that was going to be spilling the beans to these guys, because if they didn't go live, WCW was going to know every week what their show was before it even was
yeah, I
aired.
wonder. I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't have been too hard to get that information, but I wonder how they.
A little harder than it is now, though. Think about it. They didn't have, cell phones weren't as, I mean, they were or not. I guess they were then, but they're not as common back then. You know what I mean? There wasn't videos, pictures, and Twitter and all that crap.
Somebody to go to the shows, I guess.
Only thing I was thinking was not necessarily a wrestler, like a production worker or something like that had mutual friends. Who knows?
Well, and there's a lot of like wrestling journalism, so who knows? Maybe they had a
Yeah,
journalist that was covering it,
bouncing back and forth. Hell, Meltzer could have been doing it. But I want to note real quick on that match, Brian. Did you see the amazing DDT that dude? Wow.
Looks like he stuck his head in the mat. Yeah, both excellent workers. I had a couple notes like Macho sells pain like better than almost any wrestler. Like he honestly looks like he's hurt.
Yeah, because obviously in this match he still had his shoulders hurt, his arms wrapped. So Arn Anderson, one of the best at working on one single limb or one single part of your body and selling it and making it so believable, dude. He is one of the best, I think.
I've a note about it too. Like, Arn attacks the arm. Like his psychology was really good. They made it look like a real fight.
Yep.
Huge difference in the way the matches were presented between the two companies for sure.
All right. Yeah. And the main storyline at the end of the story was?
So basically the end of the match, the ref goes down. Macho hits him with the brass knuckles. Macho wins.
Right.
What was the story?
But let's note this. Arn Anderson had the knucks first. They're originally Arn Anderson's knucks, and he fumbles them because he was going to hit Macho. That was the whole plan from the get-go. But then obviously it didn't work. It backfires. And Pillman and Benoit come to the ring. Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. I don't have a note on that, but I do remember they come to the ring. I can't remember exactly. Did they just chase Macho off?
He got out of there. Yeah, it was. They were late. I don't know if that was meant to be that way, if that's how they wrote it, or if because there's a lot of true stories of wrestlers that have been caught sleeping when it was their time to be out. So I don't know. Honestly, if that's how they wrote it or not, but. It still, in my opinion, and this is one thing I forgot to mention, Brian, that I wanted to really talk about on all this. I'm really huge on if you're putting a show on, no matter what company it is, that first match needs to be an attention getter. That first match needs to set the tone. That first match is what gets that crowd going, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
If we compare this match, Brian, right here, to the last show, which we just talked about.
Sure.
What do you think's the difference? What do you think is the better and the worse of it?
Well, I mean, like I said, the serious presentation, the backstory too was didn't Arn cost Macho the world title? Hence, it's on Flair. So, I mean, give the history of it. The match makes sense. I don't really know. I guess there were some rivalries in the WWF one, the Razor, the 1, 2, 3 Kid, but it kind of just looked like they threw
a bunch of people together
and we're like, have this silly match. So this seemed more meaningful, seemed to progress the story. It looked more like a real fight. It was an actual real match too, instead of 3 tag teams essentially.
Right. A little bit. Well, in my eyes, that's a spot fest because you got too many talents. So obviously everybody's going to want to get over. Everybody's going to want to get their spot in, and there's only a limited time. So when you have that many people, that's why I'm not, and if you listen to my podcast, I'm not a fan of these 6, 8, 12-man tags because it's too many people.
Yeah. Stiff
Nobody wins in that. No matter, I mean, winning the match don't matter to me. But I'm saying as far as getting over, nobody gets over because nobody has enough time to showcase their stuff. And when you're, when you're like we were talking about the WWF, when you put 8 really big names out there as a opener, you can't go Broadway on an opener because then what the heck's the main event going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, my opinion, just we'll get back into it here, but my opinion, if we compare opener to opener, hands down, WCW destroys them, has your full attention, it's more believable, and I think that's main reason why they are winning at this time and going for or starting to win and go forward.
Yeah, I mean they gave you an actual match of substance versus just a gimmick match.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, so on to the second match. We have Lord Steven Regal versus Chris Benoit. Um, two of the best workers probably ever.
Lord Steven Regal, Brian, and sorry to cut you off, but this is my opinion, the most hateable heel back then, right at that time.
His facial expressions were great.
The best facial expressionist. He was, like you said, technical and talented, but I hated him because I just something about his gimmick. I just hated him,
He was so smug. He played
Yeah.
that he played that well. Let's see. Some notes I have. They gave away more Raw spoilers, so hit him with that. Hank Aaron was in the crowd.
Yeah. RMP to him, man. His birthday was just Friday, and yeah, he just passed away.
I got a note about Regal's expressions about how he just had the best pompous, snobby looking face. Benoit, super intense. I mean, he looks.
Do you have it all in your notes for Benoit stiff? I felt like he was a little stiff with him. And maybe that's just because I haven't watched enough Benoit stuff recently to remember how he wrestles, but I felt like, man, he was a little stiff with Steven.
I think from what I know, Regal was stiff worker too, and they wanted it to come across as
a little bit, yeah, like a shoot almost, yeah.
I imagine that was fine with both of them, but from what I've seen, I mean that's just how he wrestles. He's hardcore. So yeah, he was phenomenal. There was I believe it was a reverse pile driver where Regal has him and then Benoit flips him
over. Yeah,
dude, brutal.
And there's a weight difference there too. So he's gotta be strong to do that.
Yeah, the name the Wolverine definitely fit him. He looked like a.
Yep.
Let's see. I wrote down it had an unclimatic finish. Regal wins. Basically, Benoit misses a suicide dive.
Yeah, so he misses a suicide dive on the outside of the ring, which
and then he pulls him in the ring and
I had to go back and look at it twice, Brian, because I was like, okay, did he hit his head or something weird happened and got hurt?
Right,
Did he like break his wrist or something when he missed? I had to look at it twice. I didn't see anything, but yeah, I'm with you. I have literally in my notes, kind of weird way to end, but 1, 2, 3 Regal.
Yeah. I thought the ending was odd. It was a great match until the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Why? But like you said, who knows? Maybe somebody got hurt.
And sometimes we know in wrestling that's what does happen. When somebody gets hurt, they'll call for go home, and they're supposed to just immediately figure out a way to end it right then and there. But sometimes, with green wrestlers or wrestlers that haven't wrestled together enough, their chemistry is not good, and I think that might have been part of it. Maybe there was an injury, maybe there wasn't an injury, but just the way they ended it, they didn't work it out. You know what I mean? That couldn't have been the way they wanted it to end. That's what I think.
The only bad part was the finish.
Yeah, great match, great technical match. We've seen a few great moves, like you said, some strength, some good stuff. But yeah, the ending was botched, I think, in my opinion. But yeah, still a good match.
Yeah, and then at the end, Pillman comes out and kind of berates Benoit afterwards. And then I believe the Giant and the Dungeon come out, right? Because they have a little beef with the Four Horsemen.
Yep.
And have the Giant holds back the Dungeon. I don't know if the Giant did or was that when Zodiac did. But
So I have Mean Gene's interview, Four Horsemen, Pillman. They all come out, obviously. Pillman's all over him or whatever, right? Because Arn lost.
yeah,
Now Benoit's lost. And if you watch it, dude, Arn makes this promo. Like, he puts him in his place. And, I'm not sure. And I got a surprise for you coming up in probably next week's show for Brian Pillman. But I just feel like at this time, I wasn't sure if I was a fan of those four together, even though it was four great talents.
I think they were.
I was always, I don't know why, I was always Arn, Tully, Rick, and Barry. I don't know why. That's just was my four. But these guys here are killers. But this promo, I think, honestly, if it wasn't for Arn, wouldn't have been as good because the way how hyped up Brian Pillman was. And
I think he did a good job with his like loose cannon.
Dude, he did a great job with it. And if you know, I noted also, Mongo talks about that more than once in this episode and the next. Like he promotes this guy needs to be locked up. He's a loose cannon, or they need to not let him in the building, and he's on it. So
yeah.
Anyway, all right.
He conveyed that well. So that's all I have about that match. Once again, I've said it a couple times. I thought it was a really good match. Just the ending kind of stunk. That was.
What do you do though?
So we go to match 3. We have Sting and Luger versus the Super Assassins with Colonel Parker. He seemed to just go from tag team to tag team.
Anybody that would take him, I think, is the deal.
Ask you this. You may not know this off the top of your head, but who are the Super Assassins?
And I haven't dug in deep enough. I didn't have enough time to look that up, but I did know they were freaking large, man.
Yeah, they were big. I'm sure they had other gimmicks.
Yeah,
seeing them a whole lot, so I don't know how.
And I looked for and if anybody out there sees this and knows, let us know. But I looked for like tattoos. I looked for something to maybe compare them to Without a Mask kind of thing. And I didn't dig deep enough. I will find out though.
I'm sure. Yeah, I could Google it in 2 seconds. But yeah, we'll look into that. Couple notes. Noticed Sting was getting rid of the blonde hair.
Man, I got the same thing in my notes. I said, note, his hair wasn't as blonde as normal. Like it's like fading, like he's letting it grow out almost. Wow. And I also noted too. Did you notice that they let Luger come out first, and then obviously Sting come out last?
Yeah.
I mean,
they didn't come out at the same time.
Yeah. And just for the note, we know that they're having a little bit of an issue leading into this. Luger.
So that makes sense.
Luger was supposed to help him. We'll talk more about that on the second episode.
And then another note I have, Pitbull comes out and wants Mongo to manage him. I thought that was a really weird.
I didn't get that either. Like, it was misplaced.
Segment. Why was he out there? Why did he ask that?
It didn't make any sense.
He gets turned down, and he's just like, gives him some advice, and he's like, "Yeah, you're right." Like it didn't.
Because I don't know. Am I missing the boat? But it was Mongo military or something.
I don't know.
I don't think he was. I mean, we know he's football and all that, but
obviously played for the Bears. But
I'm with you. It didn't fit. That was. Let's make a note of that. That was one bad thing that just didn't work.
It almost looked like it. I mean, I know it was planned, but it almost looked like it wasn't planned. Like,
yeah,
it came out back and was like, "Hey, dude," and they're like,
what? You know what I feel like? It was supposed to happen after this match, and he messed up the time, and he's like, "Oh, the match is over," and they're like, "Hey, well, we might as well do it since he's here."
Yeah, that could be. The announcers were trying to create doubt in your mind if Luger was a heel or not. I have a note on that. Let's see. It's okay match, good drama. Sting was kind of stuck in the ring. If you remember, he couldn't get
Yep.
the tag.
Couldn't get to the
So that was that. I think that always adds good drama to a tag team match when
yeah. And
you
let's
got
note this too,
all-
Brian. Well,
yeah,
the Assassins, they weren't pushovers. They were a good team for what they were, and they had a couple great tag double moves in there, and made it believable. Let's put it that away.
yeah. I have another note. It looked like one of the Super Assassins made the mistake trying to stop the rack. The one in the rack
Yeah,
clearly misses him. So like he spins the guy around and like he's supposed to hit the other guy with his
yeah, with
foot,
his feet. Yeah.
and he clearly misses him.
Did you notice also though too? Like, I have it right here. Sting was late getting in to make that stop. Like that, I think that was the whole timing of that was off by, and that could have been Luger's fault. He could have went too early, or it could have been Sting was late. I don't know exactly how that works, but yeah, I don't know if you noticed that, but I noted in my notes that I felt like maybe Sting was late, but then again, it could be Luger.
Yeah,
Being,
I have Sting comes in, Luger wins via the rack. Sting puts I don't know who the different guys are, but puts the other
right.
assassin in the death lock. I've marked botch finish. That seems to be a theme. Uh,
Right. Two in a row.
Luger and Sting win. Not bad, but not a good finish. Once again, is kind of what I got out of that one.
Yeah, that's the same thing I got too. It was a decent match. I think it obviously put over both Luger and Sting. We had a little bit of drama where, Sting was in the ring, like you said, for a little bit of time. All in all, it was a good match. But once again, Brian, this is two botches in a row, in my opinion, on the endings.
Which historically seems to be one of the problems with WCW is great build up botched.
I wonder why that is. I wonder if it was a little bit more free, uh, open for the wrestlers to kind of come up more with their endings, or if it would just literally was black and gray and you got to do this ending and this is how it's supposed to end.
I don't know. Or like you said, this is simply a timing thing. They could have been off,
Yeah.
or when he spun the guy around in the rack, obviously.
Yeah, I felt like that was a timing thing, but honestly though, if you look at it, I don't, that's why I wrote Sting was late at first, but if you look at it, the Assassins is coming into the ring I think at the right time.
Yeah,
It's just I think he looked up for Sting, expecting Sting to be maybe closer or whatever, and then
I'd have to
at
watch
this at the same time, he's like, oh shit, I gotta get up so I can or stand up so he hits me with the feet, even though Sting's not here. I don't know. Yeah, it's botched.
that's the best way to say it. So that's kind of what I have there. Then after that, we have Mean Gene. He interviews Jimmy Hart and the Giant.
Yep.
Just a couple notes about that. Jimmy Hart's wearing a wild suit like he always does.
Always.
Very loud, very loud.
Dude, he has not changed one bit. Not one bit. He still looks the same, sounds the same.
Yeah. I know they do like a Bobby Knight chair reference. Like because they're talking about Hogan hitting him with the chair. That's why he was suspended or whatever. So
he snaps. He hit the ref. Yada yada yada.
The Giant screams, which is basically all his promos were at that time, is him just screaming.
He wasn't a good promo back then.
It wasn't awful. I mean, it fit his character, but it was just.
That's what I always said this, and especially with Andre the Giant. The less they talk, the better they are because they're so big and scary. I mean, you don't want them to open their mouth and have a girl voice or something crazy, and then be like, oh, geez.
What if you already have like a good talker with you? Less is more.
Jimmy Hart, for example, like I wrote down good. It was a good promo, and I think Jimmy Hart, obviously, pretty much did the whole thing and led the way. But like you said, if you got somebody like a Cornette, a Jimmy Hart, or a Bobby Heenan, somebody that can talk for you as a manager, dude, sometimes it's better. It's better off not talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think like what you said was right. If you have a big like beast. It almost makes it more mysterious if the guy doesn't talk, makes
Yep.
him look scarier to me than, like you said, a high pitched voice or botching his words, trying to sound
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
Almost
Or you just can't understand what they're saying because they just speak bad English, period.
talked like he had marbles in his mouth. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then that was pretty much it. And then they did. I wonder why they keep them in on the network, but they had the Slim Jim commercials, and I put a little note that I missed those Slim Jim commercials.
Yes, yes, they were good. I don't know. Maybe they probably still getting kickback for it. I'm sure. I want you to know though, Brian, that there's a lot of music and there's a lot of shit that's cut out of some of these episodes that we're gonna be watching going forward.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what, but when we get to some of those episodes, I'll try to have the notes and info. I just know that from all the podcasts that I listen to, all the wrestling podcasts I listen to, they cover everything, and there's a lot of WWE Network has cut out, I should say, a lot of.
I wonder
stuff.
why.
Like if you watch any ECW stuff on the network, Ryan, they don't have any of the music. All the music is what WWE put in, and honestly, and Conrad talks about this a lot. That's what made ECW, in my opinion, dude. It was just like they had like all the big name music songs as promos that everybody knew, and the crowd sung along with it. So it gave you that, crowds with us kind of thing.
Due to licensing, but some of the stuff I wonder why, like, if they're cutting out matches and stuff like that, I wonder why they leave some stuff out, some stuff don't.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's licensing, and some of the wrestlers, it was in their contracts. Obviously, when they leave WWE, they still had the rights to their name and yada yada yada. So, all right, let's get into this main event, bro.
Sure. So we're to the final match. Hogan, Flair. Obviously, probably the two biggest names in the promotion at the time. Live on TV. We were talking earlier, like as a kid, like you would never have seen a match like this on just regular TV.
Nope, never. And not only that, us as kids, because we're both the same age, we've dreamed of this kind of match. Hogan and Flair, the two brands separated, back in the day where Hogan was the WWF, Flair was a WCW. This was a dream match for us kids for years. We always wanted Sting to face Hogan or Flair to face Hogan. And when he finally went over there, yes, we know he's on his decline in his career, but honestly, Brian, I still think he put together some of the better matches of his career in WCW.
Are you talking about Hogan?
Yeah, Hogan.
I agree with you. He actually wrestles, I feel like, in this era. So yeah, it was kind of surprising to see him moving and doing as much as he did.
And let's note this real quick before you start. Going back to your thing that you said of never seeing this kind of match on TV. Back when Hogan was in WWF, heck, you never really even saw him on TV, at all. If it was, what was it? A promo. Right. Eat your vitamins, say your prayers. That's all you ever saw until the big shows.
Or a 10-second replay of something that they wanted you to see, which is kind of they're still doing in this era.
Yeah.
So one of my notes is Flair comes out wearing a bandage. So I think he was split open.
I have that here too on his forehead. Yeah.
In his career, and I will say the blood looked good on that like bleach blonde hair. I don't know.
Always
with the color of his super blonde hair and the blood made it look good. The crowd was absolutely going nuts for it.
Yep.
Let's see here. I noticed like Flair has like a bump on his right shoulder. Like it looked like a.
Yeah, he's always had that. I'm not sure if that's from when that plane wreck when he broke his back way back in the day. And I will note this, Brian, he'll give you something to look out for going forward. Because of that plane wreck, every time that Ric Flair comes off the top rope or gets body slammed, if you pay attention, he doesn't go flat. He always gets slammed on his side. Okay. And it's because of that broken back situation and that plane crash way back in the day. And I don't know, I've always wondered what that thing was. And I just honestly thought, well, it's probably something from the back issue that he had. Before you go any further, though, I do have a note. The crowd popped really big for Hogan, but I got this theory, and actually my daughter is the one that has the more of the theory, and she brings it to me. But Flair's wearing black trunks, and in this theory, this means either it's going to be a disqualification or interference and no contest.
Yeah, somebody, I've heard that somewhere, that the color of his trunks indicated the finish. Like if you
Yep.
wore blue,
Red, I think so. I'll have to ask Julia again, but I think red is he loses, blue he wins.
yeah.
And I've been paying a lot of attention now in 2021, obviously, what Charlotte wears, because I think she's doing the same thing.
Which is nice, but once people figure it out, then.
But I want to bring that up real quick before you get into this match, so then we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
That's interesting. Let's see. So I got a few notes. Flair working the knee. So once again, like Arn, you have lots of psychology. He puts Hogan in the figure 4. Hogan reverses it. I do have notes about kind of exactly what you were saying. Hogan did a lot more in this match than I seem to remember him doing. Didn't look too bad. You could tell he wasn't super mobile, but he never was. But I thought he was putting on a pretty good show and, put in good effort for.
Yeah.
I
mean, this is technically really like a house show. Yes, it's live on TV, it's Nitro, but like we said, this isn't a pay-per-view event. This isn't where Hogan usually shines. It's just a normal Monday night.
Weird to see him kind of working like an everyday wrestler, because it seemed, like you said, as kids, he was so. It seemed like protected, like you never just him wrestle just a normal match. It was just always the big
and you never knew if he was hurt or because you didn't see him enough. You just
and then let's see. Have Hart distracts. Hogan hulks up. Arn comes in with the brass knuckles, but it doesn't work. They end up calling a DQ. And then Hogan or Savage saves Hogan from a giant run-in, which they're obviously hyping, a rivalry there.
They're building towards a giant Hogan. What I thought was weird, Brian, was did you see the interaction between the Four Horsemen and the Dungeon of Doom? Like there wasn't any. Like it was kind of weird. It was like we had a quick flop.
Yeah,
it was like the Four Horsemen were gone, and bam, we got the Dungeon.
Yeah.
And, I did also note, Brian, one thing that we're going to talk a lot about going forward in this year of 96 with WCW, every Flair match, he had his classic flip over the turnbuckle, his, I don't know what they call it, but I don't know where I'm at and fall forward on my feet. Every single match he does. He has 3 things he always does. That, the flip over the turnbuckle, and he'll do the rocket launcher from the top rope, which is always where he's acting like he's going to come off top rope. He waits, somebody gets him, and then they do the body. And that's every single match.
Yeah, it gets a little old. I hate the one where he's dazed.
That's funny every once in a while, but to do it every single match, a lot of his, people he wrestled talk down on the fact that he has the same match over and over and over. But to me, in my eyes, I didn't catch on to that till I got older and, put things together. But it still to this day, like I didn't think it mattered because he had your attention, even if you knew what he was doing. You know what I mean? Like he was that good.
Well, the reasoning for it is kind of like, when you watch like a classic rock band, like you go, because you want to hear the hits. You don't want to hear their new album. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to hear the new songs. Maybe
exactly.
You want to hear the old hits. And I think that's kind of how he looked at it, was like, this is what people want to see. So they're going to pay money to come watch me. I'm going to give them.
Yeah. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning too. Like if you have an opening contest that does everything, you don't leave nothing for the main event. Well, that's a little bit different, I think, when you have people like Hogan and Flair, because they're going to do their matches no matter what happens. You know what I mean? And they're going to do the same kind of stuff. They might change some of the chemistry around, but we know what we're going to get. We don't know what the finish is going to be, but we know what we're going to get. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Even with the Hogan, the hulking up thing, that was something he did all the time during this time period. So you knew at least once a match. Now he might lose still or whatever, but you knew at least one point he was gonna hulk up. The only other thing I have is they kind of hint at the Zodiac holding the giant back.
Yeah, yeah.
Doom, which that kind of plays to fruition later.
Right.
Same thing. The finish wasn't that great. It was a DQ finish, which I'm never a big fan of.
Okay, so let's look at this, Brian. Okay, think about this. DQ finish there was kind of botchy. We had a botchy match with Luger and Assassin. Now that might have been actually the best, the best one out of all of them. But that was the only match. Luger and Sting's match was the only match where we didn't have any interference or illegal objects.
Right. Yeah, it would have been better, as I was saying, they actually gave stuff away, but they kind of didn't at the same time. They have this huge title match, but it ends in a DQ, so there's no title change hands. Even the heel,
right? Yeah, which is perfect on a show like that. You don't want to, obviously do too much because then you don't have enough meat on the bone going forward. I do note this, Brian, at the end, I feel like they were talking mad crap on WWE at the end of the show. Like, they just were pushing more about, how they're the better product and yada, yada, yada. But it just seemed like they went a little heavy on it. And then obviously Bischoff announced next week's match live right there, which I thought was brilliant because you're leaving everybody on their seat with what just ended in a controversial ending with the giant coming, yada yada yada. Yep. And then you throw them, well, here's what's going down next week already. Man, I love that.
Yep, you're gonna have Hogan Savage versus Flair and Arn, which makes sense for the storyline, and it also entices people to watch the next week's show.
Right, but you're still in the back of your mind thinking, well, what about the giant and the like? Shouldn't we be seeing some more out of that? But yeah, we'll talk about that. So, all right, Brian, let's give this a bacon rating. I'll let you go first since you started this mess.
I'll give it probably 2. I would probably do it higher. My scale, I think, might be a little more harsh than yours. I thought the talent was good. The matches were good. The finishes were what I had a problem with. I did like the live matches. I felt like you actually got a real wrestling show versus whatever Raw put on. But yeah, that was my biggest problem with it, was the finishes.
Gotcha.
The talent and the star power, it definitely trumps.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go, I know you said my grading scale is a little different. Yeah, it might be a little different. I'm going to give them 2.5 pieces of bacon on this one. I think it's a half piece better. I really thought it would have been a full piece better if they wouldn't have botched all that shit and had so many run-ins. That seems to be a common theme going forward on both shows. It happens a lot in wrestling anyways, but my opinion, if we wouldn't have had a mess up on the 2 out of those 3 endings, they probably would have been a 3-piece show in my opinion, but I'm going to give it 2.5 pieces.
Yeah, the run-ins can be effective, but when you go to the well too many times.
Exactly. Man, well, we're going to be repeating ourselves a lot going forward. I know that, like, just because I feel like there's no way around it. And I think that sometimes in wrestling, when you're writing stuff like they're doing so much with so many talents, and so, you kind of got to repeat some of the same stories. And we're going to see some of that. It might not be the same names, but
like the shows end up getting longer and longer. So,
man, right now, this is the prime time. This is what I loved about it, because I could easily do this. I could do 2 episodes a night after my working and doing all that crap, because, one's not enough. 2's about right, but once the time on these shows get longer, it's Like right now in reality in 2021, I can't watch 3 hours of Raw straight through. It's just impossible. Not only with my kids, but just like it loses interest, and it's not a good product right now. And it's, you know,
3 hours is too much. I really like the hour shows because I thought you could really, especially if you had one flagship show, you could really push specific high card storylines during these shows and
yeah.
through
Now, if
that progress the story to the pay-per-view essentially. Whereas, once, like you said, once you get into the 2 hour, 3 hour shows, there's so many throwaway matches.
yeah, well,
You're just like fast forward,
it's basically you're filling in time slots. That's all you're doing. You're not telling stories. You're just filling in time. And I'll be honest, if I was in charge, like, okay, I have it this way. If you're gonna give me an option, I would do two shows. If I had a 2 hour window, I would do two shows a week. One 1 hour show and one 1 hour show a different day. But to put 2 hours together on one episode, you've got to be really creative. That's all I gotta say. Like AEW is doing a pretty good job right now. Don't get me wrong; they lose me on a lot of stuff, or some of it's really bad writing or whatever. But it's impossible to do 3 hours. That's all there is to it. 3 hours of one brand is just it's. I break it up. I break it up in 2 days. I mean, I have to.
Yeah, I think even like today's generation, even compared to ours, the attention span is much shorter, and even a 2 hour show is probably a little bit long for me. I'd rather have
Absolutely.
more substance, more meaningful matches. Have every match. Maybe have a throwaway match or two every once in a while, but each
Yeah.
match is building to the pay per view, and
Yep.
that way you can keep.
And that's the way history of wrestling has been. I think that's how it should stay. But obviously, this new generation, things are way different. I mean, it's more right here, right now, kind of, than let's build this up and make this mean something. And that's what I hate about it. I wish they would go back to it. I know some people are trying here and there, but you can't do one storyline like that and then the other the other storylines are not nothing.
Yeah, if it goes nowhere, it loses my interest.
Exactly.
Have a payoff.
Well, hey, we got two more shows to dive through, but before we do, let's take a really quick break, and then we're gonna dive through these next two a little bit quicker. But we also are gonna get in depth. I'm gonna let you start off with Raw, and I'll finish this up with Nitro. Okay?
I'll stop the video, mute it here real quick.
I'm gonna stop the recording. We'll be back in just a minute.